Katie, Girl About Library, and I'm here today with my October reading wrap-up. I read 6 books during the month of October. I thought I would read more, but I don't actually know why, because there's only one extra day in the month of October, so I don't know why I thought I would get more books read. I read 2 nonfiction books, a short story collection, a thriller, a general like women's fiction type of book, and then also a young adult novel. They were not all winners. We're gonna fit. But I still have a lot to say about them, as you can probably tell from the timestamp down below. So I don't have a fun intro for this planned, or like cute sentiments about how I can't believe October is already over. But let's get into the books. First up is Toil and Trouble, 15 Tales of Women in Witchcraft. It is a short story collection, and it was a struggle. I started this book, I guess, towards the middle of the month, and it took me the entire rest of the month to finish it. I gave this book 2 stars, and I think it earned it. Yeah, there's no sugarcoating this one. I really did not like this book. I'm gonna put it down so I don't blind you. Some of the stories in this, some of the short stories is so hard to say. This is gonna be such a pain in the ass to edit. I had a couple of 3 stars, a couple of 4 stars. Overwhelmingly, it was 1 and 2 stars. I think the most frustrating thing to me about this short story collection is like, I could kind of see what the author was trying to do in several of the short stories, and it would just go like this totally random, weird direction. And I don't know if it was because they had a story to tell and they felt like they needed to work witchcraft into it, because sometimes that is when it would kind of like veer off into a direction that didn't feel like it helped the story. So that was some of them, but some of them were literally just 10 pages of me being like, I don't understand what is happening right now. I could totally see someone loving this book, but it was not for me. I also read A Spark of Light by Jodi Picoult. I was today years old when I found out that it's Jodi Picoult, not Picoult. I went to Texas Teen Book Fest and saw Nick Stone talk about her like working type mentor relationship with a woman named Jodi Picoult, and I was like, that can't possibly be Jodi Picoult. Who's Jodi Picoult? They're the same person. I've just been pronouncing her name wrong for like over a decade. Anyway, Jodi is an auto-read author for me. I don't always love her books, but they're talked about so much within like book blogging and booktubing and just like book life that I always read them now. Thank you to the publisher for allowing me to read this book before it was published in exchange for an honest review. I have a 60-second book review I will link down below and above about this book. I think it does a really good job of describing my feelings about it, but basically this is a story about a women's health center in the state of Mississippi. It is the only women's health center in that state that provides abortion services to women. And in the book, the story is told from the end, what we would generally think of as like the end of the story, to the beginning. So it's not hard. I don't know why I'm struggling to explain this. It's just it's reverse in time. The first chapter is very exciting, but I almost stopped reading about 20 pages into this book. This is not a spoiler. This is in like the synopsis of the book. I just didn't read that. A gunman attacks the women's center, and the story is told from the perspective of the hostage negotiator and then the women who are inside the center. So I did not know this. I did not read the synopsis of the book because I knew I was going to read it. So I was like, this could be about the phone book. I'm going to read it. So this isn't like a spoiler that I'm telling you this right now, but one of the characters, the hostage negotiator, is negotiating with this hostage who is holding his daughter hostage. She was one of the women inside the women's center. And it just felt so unnecessary. Like, I felt personally attacked. I mentioned this in the 60-second book review, but it is just so true. Like, it really, reading this book, it felt like a very special episode of a medical drama or like a CSI type of Law and Order-y type show, because the stakes were risen to a level that just so fast in the story. Like, if it had just really, did his daughter need to be one of the hostages? I don't know. I got past that though, and I gave this book 3 stars, but that is not the only twist in this book that just felt like too much, or was just like not explained at all, or like fully developed. I did give this book 3 stars though. Like, I did enjoy big chunks of this book, but I wasn't going to give it 4 stars because 4 stars to me means that I would recommend it to other readers, and I wouldn't recommend this book. So I read 2 nonfiction books this month, and they were both excellent. Where are they? I only have one of them still, and it is HOOKUP, American HOOKUP, The New Culture of Sex on Campus. This book is such an eye-opener. If you have any interest in hookup culture, rape culture, just like unhealthy, toxic masculinity, this book is fascinating. Or if you're looking for a book to read for Nonfiction November, this is great. American HOOKUP is written by a professor, and in one of her classes, she asked her students to journal about their experience with hookup culture on campus. And the results from those journals were fascinating. And so she weaves in so much information. Like, she weaves in these journal entries. She also weaves in kind of like a historical perspective of how hookup culture came to be. And then she weaves in a bunch of different like perspectives on hookup culture. So for some students, hookup culture is beneficial. For some students, it is not. And for the majority of students, it is not. She looked at the impact of this culture on different races, on different sexualities. My husband and I just sat one night and I like pulled different quotes from the book and we talked about them, because I feel like now, it's been a while since I was in college, but it hasn't been so long that I don't remember like big chunks of it. And so it just gave like a really interesting perspective to that experience. The biggest takeaway for me from this book, and the thing that I think like I would recommend it to other readers for, is how hookup culture informs rape culture and how they like feed into each other. It was one of those books you read where you're like, the stars line up and you're like, oh my gosh, like it all makes so much sense. There were some parts of the book that felt a little bit unnecessary or just kind of like obvious as far as the college experience. But I think that the way that she builds the story and like the blocks that she uses to like create this really solid foundation for her perspective, it totally worked. And I'm probably around like 4 or 5 stars for this book. Like it's really good. Another nonfiction book that I read this month was Bad Blood. And this was also just such a good nonfiction book. If you are looking for a nonfiction November pick, Bad Blood, also an excellent choice. This book is a wild ride. I did not know any of this stuff had happened before I read this book. And if you're interested in like Shane Dawson's docuseries, this might be, or like true crime, this might be one that you are interested in. So this book is an expose on a company called Theranos. And it was formed by a woman named Elizabeth Holmes when she attended, I believe, Stanford, and she was like 19 years old. She dropped out. She formed this company called Theranos. And her idea was, if she could take very small amounts of blood and use them to do a wide array of blood tests. So if you've ever gone to the doctor before and had your blood taken, you know they have to take vials and vials of blood in order to do blood tests. And this is exhausting for patients, for the medical practice. It's a lot of blood to collect. So her idea was, why don't we do those blood tests but just use much smaller amounts of blood? How would we make that work? It's a great idea. Everything else about the book totally blew my mind because I had no idea. I had no idea. Basically, the technology never worked. Elizabeth had this great idea, but she never actually made the science of it work. Despite that though, she decided to try to sell this technology. Walgreens purchased it, Safeway purchased it. I mean, this was a multi-billion-dollar company that was built completely on lies. She lied about the product. She and her team of people created false reports. When you think about how close this product came to being widely available, and I cannot believe, like, it's just crazy. If you read this book, comment down below so that we can chat about it, because it's insane. I also read A Heart and a Body in the World by Deb Coletti. This book absolutely blew me away. So, full disclosure, I had pretty low expectations of this book before I started it. It was an ARC that I picked up at North Texas Teen Book Fest, and I wouldn't say I had low expectations, maybe I just had no expectations. But I just picked it up on a whim. Like, I finished the book that I was reading that night and wanted to pick up another one. It was pretty late, and I just figured I would get like 5 pages in and then, you know, start it the next day. But that is not what happened. I got 5 pages into this book and I like got out of bed, grabbed a highlighter, pens, sticky notes, like I was gonna annotate this thing. It is amazing. It is such a good book. I still haven't like finished processing how I feel about this. I have a 60-second book review, I'll put it down below. But it's about a girl named Annabelle. She decides at the beginning of the book that she is going to run from Seattle to Washington, D.C. She's going to run across the country. And you don't quite know at the beginning of the book why she has decided to do this. You just know that something traumatic happened to her. And I think that was the best part of the book. I know that that is the reason I got out of bed and like got my annotation supplies, was the way that Deb Coletti, the author, works these PTSD episodes into the narrative. Like, it was just so seamless, and it made my jaw drop the first time that I read it, because it took me totally off guard, and it just works so well. But so the story follows Annabelle as she does this cross-country run, and she meets different people along the way. She communicates with her family and her friends. Her grandpa actually follows her on her run in his like mini bus, and that's where she's able to sleep at night so she doesn't have to camp while she's doing the run. It was just such a good book. There were so many takeaway moments in this book that I marked. I need to make like a 5 quotes I love. I need to make a quote video about this book, because there really are. There's just so many moments in this book that I like brought me to tears, or like just really like got me. This book got me good. There is one small like hiccup as far as the plot that I was frustrated with, and a lot of people on Goodreads have mentioned this as well, and that brought, like, this would have been an easy 5 stars for me. It went from 5 to 4 because of this plot hiccup, but other than that, highly recommend this book. It was really, really good. Last but not least, I read Bluebird by Attica Locke, and I did that with Jacqueline of 6 Minutes for Me. I will link her channel down below. This is the perfect book to buddy read. I'm so glad that I did it, because going into this book, I had 0 expectations, but Jacqueline had read one of Attica's books before, so she had fairly high expectations. I ended up giving this book 3 stars. The book follows a detective. His name is Dwayne, I believe, and he is in East Texas. 2 people have been murdered. One is a black man and the other is a young white woman. And the book explores just Dwayne trying to solve these crimes as a Texas Ranger. The small town politics of these 2 bodies being found and the impact that has on the investigation. I was just never really pulled into this book. I think it's well written. I think it's smart. I like the commentary, but I was never pulled into the plot. It was really easy for me to put it down and come back to it, which, I mean, makes it an easy read, but I just, again, in order for something to be 4 stars for me, it has to be a book that I would recommend, and this isn't one. And those are the books that I read in the month of October. Let me know down below the best book that you read in the month of October, or the worst book you read in the month of October. Was it also Toil and Trouble? Anybody else? If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe for more bookish content. Thank you so much for watching and reading. Have a great day.